Public hearing before the Sawyer County Board of Appeals is hereby called to order at 5 p.m. Sawyer County Courthouse, Hayward, Wisconsin. Present on behalf of the board, Al Gerber, Laura Russ, Steve Kelsey, Gordon Christians, and Joe Barron. On behalf of the zoning office, Jay Kozlowski, Kathy Marks, and Tom Duffy. Those persons desiring to give pertinent testimony will be afforded the opportunity to do so. As recognized by the chairman, that person will clearly state their full name before giving testimony. Each hearing will follow this order: reading of the application, submission of the file to the board, applicant statements and presentation of evidence, testimony of those in support of the application, statements from person in objection to the application, rebuttal as permitted by the board, and decision by the board. Orderly procedure requires that each side shall proceed without interruption by the other. All testimony will be addressed to the board, and there will be no questions or arguments between individuals. Any persons aggrieved by the decision of the board may appeal the decision to the circuit court within 30 days of the date following the board's decision letter. The day following the signing of the board's decision letter is the first day of the 30-day appeal filing period. This public hearing has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 Wisconsin statutes in Sawyer County Record and Sawyer County Gazette on November 26th and December 3rd, 2025. The public hearing will follow this order: approval of minutes, variance applications, new business, and adjournment. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes? Any questions or additions or deletions, omissions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Motion made and seconded by Kelsey and Rusk. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
We have two variance applications this evening. The first is a public hearing in the town of Hayward, variance number 25-007, owners Larry and Tammy Johnson, part of the southeast one quarter, the northwest one quarter, and part of the southwest one quarter, the southeast one quarter, section 26, township 41 north, range 9 west. It is as tax ID 12822. It is 1.25 total acres, zoned residential 1. Application is for the enclosure of an 8-foot by 26-foot open lean-to area located 27 feet at the closest point of the ordinary high water mark of Lake Hayward. This 8-foot by 26 area is onto an existing 34 by 26 primary structure. With approval of the proposed variance, the applicant would then rebuild this existing primary structure of 26 by 42 into the existing footprint and vertically expand. With approval of the variance, the other existing 537 square foot cabin would be removed. This variance is requested to the Sawyer County Code of Ordinances Appendix B, Section 6.1, which would require the prior granting of a variance for any new structure located closer than 75 feet to the ordinary high water mark. Since this open lean-to area is proposed to change to an enclosed habitable area, it requires the variance approval. As part of an on-site inspection conducted by myself on 9/2/2025, I was with myself and Casey Mashevitz. At that time, the owner had specified his future intentions for the property would be the establishment of a new primary dwelling as detailed within the summary. Ultimately, this was a semi-difficult request to set up based on the unique scenario, history, and situation of this property. An approved 1998 variance, indicated as 98-009, granted the property vertical expansion and allowance to exceed the 50% current estimated fair market value of an existing office building. The 50% current estimated fair market value is no longer used and is not a requirement of the ordinance. The land use permit in conjunction with this, 98-165, which related to and required the 1998 variance, designated the office building as an other primary structure on the lot. This designation is recorded and approved by the 1998 variance and land use permit, therefore identifying two permitted primary structures on the lot. To further summarize, the variance request is to convert an 8-foot by 26-foot portion of the open lean-to area to enclosed habitable space. If approved, the applicant would apply for a land use permit to replace the existing office building with a new primary structure, utilizing the existing footprint and permitted vertical expansion. In addition to the variance approved expansion area, it would be required of the applicant to fully remove the existing cabin dwelling, which would then allow for the new primary structure to be permitted as the dwelling. Even if the Board of Appeals believes that the request as currently submitted should not be processed due to a disagreement with the designation as a second primary structure on the lot, as indicated from the 1998 variance and 1998 land use permit, it would be anticipated that a new variance could still be made by the applicant as a separate variance request process, and that a new variance could still request for a full 26 by 42 foot dwelling within the existing footprint of the office building, and be it a two-story dwelling with removal of the existing cabin. Thus, this result would be the same nature of the variance request. Assuming that both the current and potential detailed variance requested were denied, the owner of the property could still utilize the footprint of the existing office building as some other type of larger screen porch or outdoor grill area. If it is not viewed as the second primary structure on the lot, it would then by default need to be viewed as an accessory structure and could still be rebuilt within the existing footprint. The applicant could still rebuild the existing cabin in the same footprint and vertically expand up to 35 feet in height. This option would keep two structures within the 35-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. The applicant could remove the existing cabin, but if not rebuilt within the same footprint, they would have to utilize the buildable area beyond 75 feet from the ordinary high water mark for a new dwelling much further back on the property. This option would most likely require removal of all trees and vegetation beyond 35 feet from the water. At that point, a new dwelling would have less limits in size as long as it meets other setback requirements, potentially quadrupling the size of the existing office building and increasing impervious surface amounts and potential impacts along the shoreline. The existing office building proposed variance expansion area is 27 feet from the ordinary high water mark of Lake Hayward. With approval of this request, the applicant would remove the approximately 537 square feet of the existing cabin. This area would return to natural green space. Furthermore, the applicant has also agreed to relocate a non-compliant 7-foot by 8-foot shed that is located 1 foot from the ordinary high water mark to a compliant location somewhere else on the property. This shed was placed by the previous owner. There is additional buildable area located on this property, but in conversations with the applicant, they would plan on using that area for a larger garage location and updating the existing outdated sewer system that is currently located much closer to the water and is only as a holding tank. Floodplain regulations and elevations have been taken on this property with a letter of map amendment submitted to FEMA and has been granted for that area to be pulled out of the mapped floodplain area. As by action of the town board, motion was approved. John Fromel, chairman, Brenda Detloff, supervisor, Carol Williamson, supervisor, Travis Butterfield, supervisor, Stacy Hessel, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed, Brinhan, town clerk. The city of Hayward was also sent this application, and this property is within 1.5 miles of the city limits. By action of the city of Hayward, motion was approved. Gary Gillis, mayor, Lisa Poppy, town clerk, or city clerk. No definitive reasons stated is what they put on their comments. There were 22 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 2 additional comments were received. One as to an objection, one in support of the request. As part of a reduced water setback variance, the DNR was also sent an application of their request, and they have also submitted additional information. Has the Board of Appeals members read those comments? Or would you like me to read them into record?
They need to be read into the record. I was not provided a copy. I don't believe any of the other board members from the DNR. Oh yeah, it did come in an email, didn't it? But I would like it read into the record. Okay. I will start with one of the objections letters we received. Dear Board of Appeals members, I am opposed to the request of variance 25-007. There is buildable area elsewhere on the lot. I was told by Jay Kozlowski from Sawyer County that there is room for a 60 by 80 structure in the buildable area that would be compliant within the required setbacks. At the Town Plan Commission meeting, the property owner indicated 2 things: that he didn't want to cut down trees on the other buildable area, and that he wants to keep the other buildable area available for a future garage. I do not see where these are listed as valid reasons to grant a variance. Furthermore, the staff report indicates that there is a potential for a new dwelling that would quadruple the size of the existing office building, which would also increase impervious surfaces. I also don't see that this is a valid argument to approve the variance, as the owner indicated he would want a larger garage there eventually anyways.
We don't know and can't assume the amount of impervious surfaces that will result in either scenario. We don't have any assurances that a future garage would have less of an impervious surface than a potential principal structure would have. We don't know if we are talking about a one-car garage or a post-frame building big enough for the storage of 2 vehicles, a boat, a camper, ATV, side-by-sides, etc. The variance request fails this 3-step test. Number 1, unnecessary hardship. There is no unnecessary hardship. According to the Sawyer County website, variances cannot be granted due to the self-imposed conditions created. Purchasing a property with hopes of getting a variance would be an example of a self-imposed situation. Anyone who pursued the property should have been well aware of one dwelling, which was the 537 square foot cabin. We knew that since it was within the 35-foot buffer zone, anyone who bought the property would be limited to the small cabin to live in unless they built in the conforming area. The failed septic system and need for a well were also obvious needs. There is no hardship. Number 2, unique property limitations. There's buildable area elsewhere on the property, so the requirement is not met. There are no unique property limitations. Furthermore, if the primary structure is built on the conforming buildable area, then at least one of the 2 structures that are near the water would be required to be removed. This should make people managing natural resources happy to have less watershed near the lake. Number 3, no harm to public interest. Currently, there's a 537 square foot habitable living space and 884 square foot of other structure. If the variance is approved as proposed, the habitable living space would increase to 2,184 square feet of non-conforming structure less than 35 feet from the water, more than 4 times the dwelling area present now. Is there an impact on septic size requirements if going from 537 to 2,184? I hear the argument that if a variance is granted that a new septic will be put in. It seems as though a new septic system should be done anyway for the 537 square foot cabin, as everyone who speaks of it says it is failed. I would also like to point out that the 884 square foot office building was a garage that was converted to office space, which to this day never had running water, plumbing, or bathroom. This office has been out of use for a greater period than 12 months. In the 1998, there was a request for variance to enclose 2 existing roofs, but open walled areas attached to the existing office building with accompanying changes of the building's roof line. Only one of those two 208 square foot sections was approved under the amended variance approval. This 208 square foot that was denied is the very 208 square foot that is now being requested. In accordance with ordinance 11.3 below, there is a 200 square foot limit over the life of the structure. We believe the wording of the administrator project's history on-site notes, comments sections is the most recent amendment staff report was confusing, as it demonstrates that the town of Hayward's meeting on Tuesday, December 9th, at least one voting member and another person in the crowd indicated this variance was already approved, so we might as well approve it now. Again, please understand that only one of the 208 square foot areas was approved in 98 and not both as requested. To summarize, we oppose to the variance request as it does not pass the 3-step test. We do not feel there is enough reason, we feel that there is enough reason to deny this variance request. Sarah Hellberg. We have no problem with the variance request of Larry and Tammy Johnson. In our 30-plus years of living next to this property, there has, until recently, been a business run out of this location, as well as renters in the small cabin adjacent with no issues. Incorporating the existing lean-to area in the proposed new home makes sense. Jan and Harold Treeland. Did everyone have a chance to read the DNR's letter?
Did not.
Let me get a little sip of water.
That come from the office? It didn't come to me.
She sent it as an attachment to an email.
Oh,
Dear board members, as part of Natural Resources has received the notice for the December 6th, which they have the wrong date, public hearing concerning the variance submitted by Larry and Tammy Johnson. The request is for the enclosure of an 8-foot by 26-foot open lean-to area located 27 feet from the ordinary high water mark. I'm going to summarize some of this as it is a lot of that same information. As the board reviews these variance requests, please keep in mind that the applicant has the burden of proof, providing that the request meets all the statutory requirements for granting of a variance. That is, the applicant must prove that they will suffer unnecessary hardship if the provisions of the county shoreline zoning ordinance are literally enforced. Wisconsin Supreme Court has made it clear that the proof of unnecessary hardship by itself does not entitle an applicant to a variance. All 3 statutory variance criteria must be satisfied in order to grant a variance. It may be possible that the applicant will provide additional evidence at the hearing, which may change the conclusions listed below. Unique physical limitations. The applicant must demonstrate that unique physical limitations are present. The physical limitations must be unique to the property in question and not generally shared by other properties in the area. The hardship must be due to conditions unique to the property such as steep slopes, wetlands that prevent compliance with the ordinance that are not shared by other nearby properties. Furthermore, that the entire property must be considered if a code compliant location exists. A hardship due to unique property limitations does not exist. Based on the information provided, there is buildable area on the property which meets the required water setback, although it is not clear from the site plan how much buildable area is available for construction purposes. No harm to public interest. The applicant must demonstrate that the variance will not result in a harm to be contrary to public interest. The board must consider the impacts to the proposed project as well as cumulative impacts of similar projects on the interests of the neighborhood, the community, and general public. The proposed variance is located within the vegetated buffer zone, which is the area that extends from the ordinary high water mark 35 feet landward. Scientific studies have shown when projects are constructed within the vegetated buffer zone and that the water setbacks there can be environmental concerns such as change in fish species from game fish to rough fish, loss of wildlife habitat, more runoff entering the lake without filtering, loss of natural scenic beauty, etc. While the county's code allows some structures to be located within the vegetated buffer zone, they relate to the navigation and access to water such as a pier, walkway, and to access the water and a boathouse. Additional structures are not exempt or allowed for the express purposes of preserving water quality and habitat. Repeated variances for the construction or expansion of structures within these areas would be contrary to public interest and have a cumulative adverse impact to Lake Hayward. Unnecessary hardship. The applicant must demonstrate that if the variance is not granted, that an unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant may not claim unnecessary hardship because of conditions which are self-imposed or created by a prior owner. Courts have deemed that the economic or financial hardship does not justify a variance. In determining whether unnecessary hardship exists, the board must consider the property as a whole rather than just a portion of the property. The property owner bears the burden of proof of providing unnecessary hardship. Looking at the property, it appears that there are options available. The existing 26 by 34 non-conforming structure is allowed to be rebuilt within the same footprint and may be vertically expanded up to the maximum height of 35 feet without the issuance of a variance. In addition, the application states that there is buildable area on the lot that meets the 75-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. In addition to the 3 variance criteria, the request should be for the minimum relief necessary. No relief is needed and a code-compliant project could occur. The proposal is requesting relief from the 75-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark for the 8-foot by 26-foot addition as close as 27 feet to the ordinary high water mark. Please note these comments are in regard to the shoreline zoning ordinance regulations only and do not represent or reflect applicable erosion control, waterway permitting, floodplain zoning, or other department regulations. The responsibility of the BoA to assure that statutory standards for granting the variance are met. The standards help to ensure protection of the public interest, including the preservation of water quality, fish, wildlife habitat along the lakes and rivers. The shoreline setback is most important to protect the water quality, natural scenic beauty, fish and wildlife habitat in Wisconsin waterways. The department appreciates your commitment to Sawyer County and the water resources and protection of public interest for future generations. Sincerely, Sue Vanden Landenberg, Shoreline Zoning Program Coordinator for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. That is all.
Before I ask for testimony, TJ, is that a fair summary of the ordinance, that they can build on the same site and that they can do the vertical expansion?
Well, clearly the vertical expansion is sure, and Jay would speak better to whether they can build on the site. It appears from the map that there is a buildable location on the property.
In the same footprint as one of those 2 existing buildings?
No.
Is that, okay?
No,
Yeah,
and I can,
there's very clearly, the map shows that there is a compliant, for lack of a better word, location to put this structure?
yes, there exists buildable area elsewhere on the property. Buildable area would be defined as at least 20 feet of width, 20 feet of depth that meets all compliance setbacks. When I initially had sketched it out, and I've not done a full on-site, it appears to be roughly 60 feet by 80 feet of buildable area.
Okay. Then the statement that was read that I believe in your staff report, it said that, that the two existing footprints, they can, it would be allowable to build on in either of those footprints up to 35 feet
Yes,
without a variance?
yes,
Okay,
as long as there would remain only one dwelling.
okay. And then my last question is, all of this was granted in 1998?
No, these structures in general predate zoning in general. The 1998 variance was for basically conversion of an existing garage that was probably placed there even pre-zoning. That 1998 variance, there was a lean-to off one side of the garage. They enclosed that lean-to. And then even back in 1998, we had what was known as the 50% rule, where if you exceeded 50% of the current estimated fair market value, it also required a variance to do so. That was eliminated, and I forget what act ended up placing that out, but you couldn't limit based on cost. They got rid of that. So the 98 variance, as amended, approved enclosure of an 8 by 26 foot lean-to area, and then they put a new roof over the entire structure, which exceeded the 50% limitation. They also at that point then converted that garage into an office building as an other primary structure.
Okay, but one of those, there was two requests, one was approved and one was denied?
It was amended.
Amended is a better word, I imagine.
So the original 1998 variance request was for the enclosure of two existing roofed but open-walled areas attached to an existing office building with accompanying a change of the building's roof line at a cost exceeding the 50% current estimated fair market value. That was then approved as amended, and that the Board of Appeals approved the application authorizing construction on the west end as proposed and no change to the east end, and construction not to exceed 50% of the current estimated fair market value. I would assume that if they were just enclosing the one end, that it probably stayed under the 50%.
All right. Board members, any questions of the council or of the office? Okay, we'll ask for testimony then. Are the Johnsons here or someone to speak on their behalf? You need to step to the microphone and state your name, sir.
Larry Johnson, here with my wife, Tammy Johnson. I take it you all have probably seen the pictures of what we're asking for, right? In looking at the requirements, as far as the hardship part of it, you know, the real issue with us is the building is 26 by 34. Okay, so right now, according to the existing condition, we could build that vertical to 35 feet. Okay, and use it. It's considered a primary dwelling. We could use it as a primary dwelling. Simply what we're asking for is the lean-to part that has a roof over it, a wall on one end, and a concrete floor to be enclosed and added to the habitable part of that so we can build vertically and have a two-story cabin. Okay? The reason we want to do this is to have in the future retirement home and be able to have a little bit more space than just basically the size of a garage. Okay? Our garage at home is 28 by 32, roughly the same size. So we're asking, since it's already there with a roof over it and a wall and a concrete floor, to enclose that and use it as our primary dwelling. Okay? Hardship, right now there's a holding tank on the front of that building, very close to the water. It's been there for maybe the 60s. It's a metal holding tank. Probably should be replaced, something that we're obviously willing to do. And to do that, we need property. Because of how narrow the peninsula is, we can't put a drain field or a mound on that peninsula. So that forces us to go back to that buildable area, which is the 60 by 80 piece, and we'd have to use some of that for a drain field. Because I'm sure you're not going to allow us to put a garage down on the peninsula where this cabin structure is, we would like to have a garage up in that buildable area. So if we were denied and you said, hey, you need to put everything back there, we're trying to fit a drain field, a well, a structure, a house or cabin, and a garage on that 60 by 80 piece. And we're doing some testing now on the ground to see what will work, a mound or a traditional drain field. But those have to be apart from each other. The structures can't be too close to either one of those. So simply, we're going to run out of room. Another piece is anybody familiar with the property? Is anybody? Okay. So when you pull in, on the right side is where the buildable area is. Okay. I would say that 60 by 80 feet buildable is probably 90% mature trees. Realistically, all those trees would have to come out. So when we're talking about the environmental impact down by the water, certainly get it, understand the DNR's point. I think if anybody went to the DNR and said something about building by water, that'd be an automatic no. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. So that's why we're asking for this, because we're simply going to run out of room trying to put everything up there. And we've got, as stated in our information, right now that the cabin that's there was built in 1940. Jay mentioned it was before any zoning was there. We would remove that, right? So we're giving back 537, I'd call it watershed, area that is right on the lake. It's 25 feet one way, 27 feet the other way, and probably 40 feet the other way from the water. So right now, there's no gutter systems on it, and there's no downspouts, so it's free flowing back to the lake. The other primary dwelling that we want to make into the cabin, same thing. It is close to the lake, and it's got no gutters, downspouts, or anything on it, and we're willing to, if we can be approved for this variance, obviously build it to code, remove the holding tank that's there, put the septic system up in the buildable area, remove the small garden shed. There's I would call it an unsightly Excel power pole that we'd like to have removed, and it would improve the sight lines of the parcel itself. So we think we've met the criteria that is being asked. It is I think Jay mentioned at the start, it's a very unique property with unique, maybe a little bit more difficult, but it's a beautiful property, and we're not going to give up trying. And if I could just provide some context to that, because when I'm done, my neighbors behind will get up and state their case. And I'd like to give you some of that information and some other information on variances to help you make a decision, okay? So this property has been for sale for 2 years. In January, we purchased it. When we did that, we made an offer. The owner countered. We were going to counter back, but then our realtor informed us that the neighbor was submitting a bid last minute, and we could either accept the owner's counteroffer or risk losing the property. So we decided to go above what we agreed to, what we're going to pay, and we bought the property. Months later, my wife Tammy and Sarah Hubbard, one of the neighbors, were exchanging pleasantries, and Tammy discussed some of what our future hopes and plans were. The next day, Aaron reached out and wanted to meet with me, as he texted time was of the essence. We met the following weekend, and Aaron stated that if the process, meaning what we're going through right now, the variance process, became too difficult, that they would be willing to pay $280,000 for the property, $50,000 more than what we paid, more than what the property was for sale for. That was for sale right next to them for 2 years. He also stated that he had agreement with the previous owner that he would be allowed last look and be able to match or go a little above if an acceptable offer came in, which is totally legal, and someone could lose a realtor license if they're operating that way. He told us that he felt the previous owner did not treat him right in that respect. We said we would keep his offer in mind. Now they are opposing a variance simply because we're not interested in selling our property to them. The same property that was for sale for 2 years right next door to them until our offer was submitted. Had never made an offer to our knowledge. Regarding a variance, we have a right to ask for one. Our neighbors have a right to oppose or accept it. In doing some research just on the road that we live on, I found 2 variances. One from 2006, Diane and Ralph Pekka. On July 18, 2006, the Sawyer Board of Appeals approved your application for a variance on the following described real estate. Application is for construction of a 2-story, 16 by 22 addition to the rear of an existing dwelling. The dwelling is located 12 feet from the ordinary high water mark of Lake Hayward. Variance is requested. Sawyer County zoning ordinance would require the prior granting of a variance of any expansion of this dwelling as the dwelling is located less than 40 feet to ordinary high water mark. The town board has approved the application. The city of Hayward has deferred to the town. The Board of Appeals approved the application with a 2-year time limit. The second one was from April 2016. Dawn Hink. Notice is hereby given that on April 19, 2016, the Sawyer County Zoning Board of Appeals approved your application for a variance for the following proposal. The construction of an attached 24 by 26 garage with eaves and a 4 by 6 foot entryway. The proposed structure would be located at 14.5 feet at the closest point of the right-of-way and 41.5 feet to the paved centerline Duffy Road. The proposed structure would also be located 61 feet from the ordinary high water mark of Lake Hayward. Board of Appeals approved your request with the following conditions. Mitigation plan, gutters, erosion control, height not to exceed roof of dwelling. Okay, so options. The way we look at it, you approve our variance. If you do that, we remove the old cabin, get back 537 square feet in close proximity to the lakeshore, back to green space, install a new well, wreck and rebuild primary dwelling with second level as well as complying with all applicable building code requirements and lakeshore requirements for environmental issues. This new structure would have the same watershed area as what is currently in place. No change. Remove aged metal septic holding tank and install a code-compliant septic system on wooded parcel. Remove garden shed propane tank from lakeshore to required setback. Work with Excel Energy to remove utility pole and bury unsightly overhead lines. So again, we're simply asking to enclose a 26 by 8 foot piece that's already there. It's on the, you've got it pulled up right now. Variance not approved. We will continue moving forward and would file an appeal. All information has been submitted for review in the event that we believe legal counsel is going to be needed. Or keep using the property as is. With no improvements to septic, well, watershed. Both existing primary dwellings do not have approved gutters or downspouts, thus rainfall, free flows back into the lake, utility pole overhead lines, garden shed, propane tank. Unless somebody makes this, we just leave them. Or we could design a cabin house garage, well and septic in the buildable area in which we would out of necessity utilize every square inch, which would require all trees being removed and a negative environmental impact this would have. I would assume this would also have a negative impact on our neighbors as well, with all the trees and vegetation being removed. We're not even sure, as I stated before, if you can fit a well, septic, cabin, garage on this footprint. Or lastly, we could sell the property. We will not be selling it to our neighbors. If we do sell the property, there's a very good chance that those people be standing here in front of you asking for the same thing because it makes sense. This is a common sense issue, which can be lacking in today's world, in my opinion, and that's where we are. So in closing, we realize that the Sawyer County Board of Appeals has the final say in this, and we hope that you consider the results of the Planning Commission, City of Hayward, and the Town Board meeting, who all unanimously approved this variance request after reviewing it and hearing our neighbors' opposition to it. We respectfully ask that you approve this variance request. Any questions?
We've heard a couple of different times now that the 60 by 80 compliant area. What's the setback requirements for a well, or not, excuse me, not a well, but a septic or a holding tank or a mound system?
Yeah, it's a great catch, I should say, that the 60 by 80 is a buildable area for structures. Wells and sewer systems would be outside of those requirements. A sewer system or a drain field or soil absorption system could be located as close as 50 feet to the ordinary high water mark. A well could be located as close as 35 feet to an ordinary high water mark. They also have different setbacks as it relates to side lot lines and road setbacks. The 60 by 80 is referred to would be just for structures, house, garage, shed, etc.
Okay. And please stay. One more question. There's been an awful lot of adjustments and changes since 1998. And some of those, and I can't recite chapter and verse, but some of those specifically address building on existing footprints that are less than 75 feet of setback. Does any of those changes apply to this, or is that irrelevant because of the 1998 approval?
I guess I'm not following along exactly, but I mean, the rules and the standards that are in place for shoreline zoning now is if you have an existing non-conforming structure, means a structure that was lawfully placed when constructed, which both of these are, and we'll take the use out of it. Whether it's primary use, principal structure, whether it's a dwelling, whether it's an accessory structure. If you have an existing non-conforming structure that was lawfully placed, you are allowed to rebuild within the existing footprint and vertically expand within that existing footprint up to 35 feet in height. It is if you are going to expand the footprint.
Okay.
Or in this case, change the use of the existing area, be it that this is an open lean-to area and not part of any type of enclosed area, is what requires the variance approval.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. All right, thank you.
And one last thing, on that buildable area, when you look at it, you're familiar with, some of you have been out there, the driveway goes down one side. The road is on the other side. We got neighbors on one side, and the front of it, we got to be 75 feet from the water. So it really does compact it down into a tight area when you look, when you're trying to put everything there. And that's to stay in compliance with most of the issues with the water. That's what we have to do, so.
Okay, thank you. One moment, please. Anybody else have any questions of the applicant?
No, no.
Okay, all right. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? All right, is there anyone online, Jay?
If anyone is online wishing to speak in favor of the application, please unmute yourself. Or raise your hand, not seeing it.
Okay, hearing no one else, is there anyone to speak in opposition of the application? Yes.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, and also very familiar with nonconformities in Sawyer County, as some of you may recall from about 15 years ago. With regard to some of the information that the public and the town had to see to make their decision, the variance application was not made available to the town and it wasn't online, so there was some confusion there. I'm not even sure if any of the Plan Commission members or town board members have had zoning training, but back on November 14th, 2023, several of you were at the Seven Winds Casino and went through Board of Appeals or adjustment training, and there were 24 slides just on variances. So it was really clear. One of the pictures that appeared in a number of the slides was that bucket with the hole in it, that the more you impact shorelines with multiple variances, that the impact becomes greater. And I know that just because there may be other variances that granted, that does not apply to this case. But it is clear from what the neighbors wrote and from the DNR letter that this does not meet the three-step test and there's other buildable area. I know that the Plan Commission in Town of Hayward is going to be seeking training. They were very concerned because of the timing of when the DNR letter arrived on December 10th. The town did not have that available to them for either their Plan Commission or Town Board meeting. And so as much as I know you want to honor the town's opinion, they did not have all the information. Earlier this morning, I sent an email to Jay and Kathy, and what it consisted of was a number of aerial photos from the Beacon system of a similar type peninsula property that's on Big Birch Lake and a neighboring property. And up until 6 o'clock this morning, I thought they were in the town of Edgewater in Sawyer County. And so for 20 years, I have been telling people what a great job Sawyer County zoning did in taking a non-conforming property and make it conforming. Now, I don't know whether the property owners did that on their own or if there was also some help from what turned out to be Washburn County zoning. But the pictures that I sent in were from 2024 and 2004 that show compliant structures, nice homes built within, far from the lake, and the clear peninsula with replanted native vegetation and trees growing up. And if you go to the years prior to that, from the 1980s and the 1960s, that was an old resort, and it was called Hud and Sons Resort, the Soper family from Birchwood. And I think when the older family members died and got passed on to sons, that got divided. But that shows really what the intent of zoning is in this day and age, is you take these non-conforming properties with old structures that really should not be built upon, and to also improve the value for the future and for them. Besides the legal reasons, I think that those pictures, I hope, demonstrate to you that it's in the best interest of the property owners and the resource and in the intent of zoning to not approve the variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone else? Hearing none, discussion by the board. You gotta turn on your mic.
I think one of our biggest challenges is the fact that there are multiple options without approval of this variance for residential use, new construction. That right there is one of the biggest challenges we have in the three-step test. There are options.
Yeah, I agree.
Another point, the buildable area that Jay and you were speaking about, the well and the septic systems don't necessarily encumber that. Is it 60 by 80?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to
Roughly.
I'd have to reflag it out, but yeah, it was roughly 60 by 80 when I
Ballpark.
done it. Mhm.
That's a big structure, and there could be a garage incorporated, could be a multi-story home incorporated. That's a lot of square footage that's possible in that area. And that challenges a three-step test just for that, because there are options.
Thanks, Steve. Joe, any comment?
My only comment is I like the fact when some of these older properties are being upgraded in regards to their well and septic. And I know that that doesn't fit in with the three steps and so forth, but when property owners are taking the steps to replace a metal holding tank, I think that's a positive for the properties in Sawyer County.
Gordon?
I guess I agree that there are other options on this particular site. I guess one that I haven't heard mentioned is could you convert one of those cabins with the cement floor to a garage? Or not?
Yep, as long as only one dwelling unit stays
Right.
and
And
the
then build a-
existing dwelling unit wouldn't be able to be converted to just accessory.
Right, so you could build a house up on the hill further and use one of those other sites for a garage. So you wouldn't need to put the garage next to the house.
Correct, you could
Instead
convert
of the
the
other way
existing
that
office
the
building to a
owner
garage.
is suggesting. So there would be probably more than enough room to build a house up on the hill. So in my view, that creates an option that is probably more viable than what he's talking about.
Thanks, Gordon.
Jay, I had another question. I noticed in your notes that the lean-to area that they want to enclose, if they would design a home there that would be a screen porch, or I think you mentioned a grilling area, get creative with their home design. What are the limitations and possibilities? That way they would be able to build on that existing site. But what could they incorporate in a home to
Yeah,
make it
so is
legal?
it being indicated as that other primary structure? Again, this would still require a removal of the existing cabin, but then we would allow that existing other primary structure to be as the dwelling, which could enclose the 34 by 26 area that's existing as enclosed space as the dwelling. As far as the open lean-to area, it would have to remain a like or similar use in that it is an open covered area right now. I'd have to check back with DNR if they'd allow screening of that, but a covered deck would certainly fit as part of that design.
Some of the things that both of those gentlemen said are things that I've been scribbling here on my paper. It's, the idea that you would have to take down mature trees to build in a compliant location is not really a valid argument. Specifically because you talk about building a larger storage building back there at some point, so either way, the trees are gonna have to come down. So if we follow what our training has taught us, we need to follow the three-step test on this. I can't see any way that we could work ourselves around it.
Okay, I guess it's time for me to state my position. It's always difficult, I think, for us to make a property less conforming, particularly when there's a conforming site available. We've heard multiple options, what to do with the two existing buildings. If we do not approve this variance, those decisions are outside of our realm tonight. And I don't think we can consider what possibly could happen if we approve or deny, or I guess more deny than approve. But anyway, so I think we have a history of leaning towards allowing or pushing towards conformity versus variance. All right. I don't know that we need to ask for additional testimony, but I'll give the applicants another opportunity to make a closing statement if you wish.
I don't think there's much more that we can say.
Okay.
We'll have to look at appealing it and go that route.
Okay, appreciate you coming. So I'll make a motion to deny the request as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
The
that.
motion's been made, or second been made by Steve Kelsey. My reasons for denial is that it is for the convenience of the owner. There are other conforming options available. And just those two reasons.
No.
Any discussion on the motion?
To solidify the record, what was the two?
Owner and other options.
As part of your other options, would that be, kind of to the three-step test aspect that you would find that there wouldn't be a unique physical limitation?
Yes, there are no unique physical limitations to the site.
And then what was the other condition?
And it's not, so it is not due to conditions that are unique to the property.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, say by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Let the record reflect that the application is denied by a vote of 5-0. Thank you for coming, and as stated in the opening statements, there's a 30-step appeal filing deadline that if you intend to appeal, you have 30 days to stop by the office, and they'll walk you through it. All right, thanks for coming.
Public hearing in the town of Sand Lake, variance number 25-008, owners Jacob and Aaron Frazier, part of government lot 6 of lot 3 of CSM number 741. It is tax ID 27755, is 4.53 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Application is for a 24-foot by 32-foot garage. This is 28-foot by 34-foot with eaves, located 23 feet from a non-navigable wetland complex. Variance is requested as the Sawyer County Code of Ordinances, Appendix B, Section 6.1, Parent 2, that prior granting of a variance is required for any structure closer than 40 feet to a non-navigable wetland. Request is for a 23-foot setback. As part of my staff report, an on-site inspection was conducted on 9/16/25 by Casey Mashevitz and myself. At that time of the on-site, the proposed garage area was laid out on the property. The applicant originally proposed a garage closer to the wetland boundary, but at time of the on-site, it was indicated to them that if they could slide the garage slightly over, it would increase the wetland setback distance to the southeast wetland complex while still maintaining a 40-foot minimum wetland setback to the northwest wetland complex. The proposed garage was then moved approximately 6 feet further over to increase that setback distance. At the time of the on-site, it was proposed as a 23-foot setback. It would appear that most of the existing area along Hathaway Lane was historically filled wetlands. That fill more than likely occurred back in the 40s and 50s when this area was first being developed. That being said, there are still identified wetland areas that require setback distances and thus the request for the variance. There's no other buildable area that exists on the lot. As part of additional research for this variance request proposal, it was observed that the property was granted an additional variance back in 2007. That variance was for an addition onto an existing cabin. The proposed variance at that time was for an attached garage area and living quarters up above, which was approved at a 1-foot wetland setback variance. Sometime between 2008, when the original permit was issued for the construction of the previously approved garage with living quarters above, and October of 2023, when the Fraziers purchased the property, the existing garage area was fully converted to habitable living area. This was not as a circumstance of the current owner, but it is important to mention as part of this variance request is that they were previously approved. This property was previously approved an attached garage variance. This variance is now seeking a detached garage. As by motion of the town board, motion was approved. Robert Langham, town chair, Greg Shedby, supervisor. If the DNR is okay with it, the board has no problem with it. Elaine Nyberg, town clerk. There were 13 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. None of those were returned. Speaking specifically on the DNR as it relates to wetland setbacks, the DNR is tasked with preserving wetlands into the aspects of filling, grading, and excavating within the wetland complexes. It is Sawyer County's shoreland wetland protection ordinances that has the other setback requirements. Sawyer County has a 40-foot wetland setback requirement. Other counties have 20 feet. Other counties have 5 feet. The DNR is not petitioned on wetland setbacks, and that this is not filling, grading, or excavating within the wetland complex. So just keep that in mind when I read the town boards. The DNR has not sent petition letters or asked for comments on reduced wetland setbacks.
And Jay, who delineates the wetland?
I did it at that time of the onsite. We generally would take a very conservative approach to wetland setbacks. This was a pretty easy one to identify. You had a clean cut vegetation line that changed as well as an elevation drop. I believe at that time we had also done soil probe and soil augering. There are 3 criteria to delineate a wetland vegetation. There's only certain types of vegetation that will grow in a wetland versus an upland site. Hydrology and whether or not there's a presence of standing water during any period of the year. And third is soil conditions. There's only certain soils that would be conducive of wetlands, and you would only typically find any type of redox within the first 6 inches within a wetland soil or hydrophilic soil. That being said,
One more question. Did everybody get a chance to get out there and take a look at this? All right, so they'll know what I'm talking about. Those big round containment, whatever those things are, what's the proper term for that?
Holding tank?
No, they're like,
Erosion buffers.
is that what they are, erosion?
all the wattles.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever, yeah. Sure, yeah, the bottles, yeah.
Yeah, well, they have a couple different names. Wattles, I guess, is a specific product name. Celsior makes a wattle, but you're talking about like the mats, the rolled mats, the
Correct,
erosion
yeah.
mats, or the erosion logs. I believe there was some washout issues, and Mr. Frazier or Mrs. Frazier can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they had some washout issues with their driveway, and they installed those to kind of control those.
That's where I was
erosion
going. I
issues.
was curious who placed them, whether it's the current owner or the former owner.
I believe it was the current owner.
It wouldn't have been a requirement of our variance committee.
No, and you can certainly implement additional items to that. When we identified, and again, I was out there in September, you guys probably didn't view this until after there was snow on the ground.
Yeah. They
From
were still
where those-
identifiable, though.
Yeah, from where those erosion logs were placed, the wetland boundary was about another 12-ish feet into the woods, or I guess to the right, if you pulled in their driveway and look into the right.
Okay. Did you have any experience with those? Are they fairly stationary once placed?
If they're installed correctly, yes. Now, generally, we would want to see, if this is like a true erosion control site, we would want, more than just the logs placed. We'd either want, when they're properly dug in, you're actually supposed to kind of trench them in. And it's really just to hold back the fine material. If you get a large slough off, it's just going to roll through this. And a lot of people like to use, silt fence, right? Silt fence is not really erosion control. And also silt fence needs to be properly installed as well, which is called, trenching in. And I believe their minimum bury depth is like 4 inches as far as silt fencing. But I believe this was more of a quick solution from the owner as to avoid some of the runoff or washing out of his driveway that was occurring.
But it was the current owner, not the
Correct.
prior owner. The reason I asked, I was curious how effective it was. If it had been the previous owner, back in 2007, then they've lasted a very long time and have been very effective, because it sure looked like they were doing the job when I was out there yesterday.
Right. The previous variance was 2007. I believe the Fraziers had just purchased in 2023.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, did you have anything else, Jay?
Nope, that was
Okay.
all.
The opposition letters were sent, or information letters were sent, but no
Yeah,
replies?
and I didn't read that into record, but 13 additional comment letters were sent out, or notification letters were sent out to adjacent property owners. 0 additional comments were received.
Okay. Okay. All right, are the Fraziers here or someone to speak on their behalf? Fire away. And you'll need to state your name, please.
Yeah, Jacob Frazier.
My name is Erin Frazier. Not a whole lot to add there. I mean, Jay's description was pretty spot on based on our partnership on assessing the site. I mean, this site is very unique. I think this property is kind of down in a hole, 4.5 acres or 4.53 to be exact. And there's really just a small envelope of buildable area. And we wouldn't need to clear any trees or anything like that. So, I mean, based on our interpretation of the three-step process, I mean, we feel like this property has unique limitations. We don't think it's a public eyesore. We've consulted with the neighbors, the neighboring properties. We've tried to match this design to look like and appear like the other neighboring properties that have garages right off of that private easement road. So, yeah, and then the hardship, honestly, is just the unique property limitation. There really is no other option. So, I mean, I'm all ears if you guys have suggestions. But yeah, it's kind of black and white.
Okay, a couple of questions, and maybe I should ask Jay this first one. Those blue flags, what did they delineate?
We either put the blue flags at the wetland boundary or, yeah, because I believe Mr. Frazier at the time had other stakes available. So the blue flags would have been indication of the wetland boundary. Yes.
Okay, and then of you, Mr. Frazier, without attaching these two buildings, water's going to run both ways, right? And in between the buildings, and where does that go?
Yeah, so the existing principal structure, if you look at the gutter system comes down and runs to the southeast, and that was done prior to the.
Southeast, for the purposes of discussion, if you're standing in the backyard looking at the cabin, just go left or right,
Sorry,
not
if you're
east or
looking at-
west.
If you're looking at the principal structure, it'd be to the right.
All right, okay. From both buildings?
So the back of the property, so when you're facing it, the gutters would drain down to the right. The front of the principal structure, the gutters would drain out towards the lake and off to the left.
Okay.
Kind of where all that riprap is up there on the left-hand side.
Oh, all right,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, in terms of this garage, I mean, we would do the same thing, right? We would tie both of the gutters into one drain tile and run it over to riprap.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
Was the washout situation you had a result of overrunning your gutter system onto the back area, or?
No, it was the grading of the driveway. It was sheet flowing to that one side, and it was just undermining there. Looking back, I wish GeoGrid would have been applied and then riprap along there. So, actually working with the local contractor to, come back, put some GeoGrid in, and then riprap that whole thing, just to prevent future erosion.
Okay, thank you. Or any additional comments?
Yeah, any other questions?
We do,
Aaron, you need to identify yourself, please.
I'm sorry, Erin Frazier. We do have support from our neighbors as well through emails. If you want me to read those, I can definitely do that. Otherwise, just so you know, we do have the support of our neighbors.
They would have, if they didn't contact us, so you don't need to contact us on their behalf, so, okay. Yeah, thank you. Lauren, turn your mic on for a reason.
Oh, gosh. I think because we've been talking three-step test, in recent history of this board, we have decided that not having a garage is a hardship. In this climate, it is definitely a hardship. I think it appears, and Jay stated that there was no other compliant location. So it's not just for the convenience of the owner, it is the only place to put it. Also, that they did work on moving the setback, changing the setback distance 6 feet further to increase the setback distance. And I spoke to Bob Langham, because I didn't know what their decision had been, and he indicated that they did have the full town support for the variance.
One of the reasons that I went out there, and when I got there, I remember I had been there before, because I believe I was on the board in 2007 when that original variance was granted. I wanted to make sure that there was enough room back there. You know, garages are nice, but the cars don't always go in there every night. But there's plenty of space in between where the back of the garage will be and where that pretty narrow access road is. That can't, is that a town road? Do you know?
No.
Does the town plow that? No, I didn't. Yeah, it's pretty narrow.
Shared easement road.
Yeah, okay. But, you know, even if there were vehicles parked outside and an ambulance or a fire truck needed to get by there, there'd be lots of room, so, okay. Okay. Joe, did you get a chance to get out there?
I did, and as a matter of fact, I ran into Jake there on Saturday afternoon because I couldn't figure out exactly which house it was, but it was very obvious once he pointed it out to me, and it looked like he had taken the steps. He showed me the erosion control, and it almost appeared to me that the existing house is closer to the wetlands than this new garage is going to be. You know, so I'm certainly in support of this.
Okay. Gordon?
I was out there this afternoon, and the one thought I had was how much impervious surface is allowed on this type of lot?
Yeah, so the impervious surface standards did change a little bit back in 2015. We used to calculate impervious surfaces within the first 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark. Now impervious surfaces are calculated per your entire land area. So the impervious surfaces are calculated to the 4.53 acres of the property, where your impervious surfaces are still going to be quite a bit low when you're using over almost 100,000 square feet of land area.
Okay.
That doesn't seem logical, but.
No, the way they wrote that, because theoretically you could have a giant property and your impervious surface amounts are still only calculated within 300 feet, but your entire land area gets to be used.
Yeah, you know, you use a 40-acre tract, and there's a lot of them. Well, that, okay, go ahead.
Jay, I have a question, just to hopefully avoid any confrontation in the future. The fact that there was a variance in 2007 for a garage and residential quarters above or expansion above, that was obviously converted to residential use without a garage. Is that something we need to be cognizant of in our decision? Or is that beyond, obviously it's beyond the scope and ownership of these folks, because it was done before they were there. I don't think I've ever run into this.
No, and I guess I really haven't, either. The application for variance, this was approved in July of 2007. It was approved as amended. Property is zoned to RR1. Application is for the construction of a 24-foot by 32-foot replacement dwelling onto an existing foundation with an existing deck at a proposed lake setback, and a 28-foot by 40-foot garage addition with second-story habitable area. Now, again, in conversations with the applicant, it appears that, they may have come to the Board of Appeals claiming, oh, we need a garage, built this structure and then converted that garage to living quarters. And maybe Mr. Frazier can speak more on that. From a square footage or a footprint aspect, I mean, they would have still needed a variance approval regardless. Now, would that have changed your mind in 2007? Because it's a really good question to bring up, and that is why, I had indicated in my staff report. It appears that, they got that 28 by 40 foot footprint approved with claiming that they needed a garage, and then converted that garage to living space. And now we have a new applicant saying, well, I don't have a garage, I need a garage. It becomes a really interesting scenario for sure. And be it that we don't know when this was, converted. I would question whether or not, some of the aspects of uniform dwelling code were met on that.
It was illegally converted.
Right. Now, from a true zoning perspective, it only would have been a difference in fees for a permit. They'd gotten a permit for, the variance for garage with living quarters up above. If they would have actually, let's take the variance out of it. Let's say they didn't need any wetland setback or any kind of variances. The only difference would have been like $100 in permit fees from our office. But now, does that change your mind in that, well, we already approved a garage once before, and now we have a new applicant wanting a garage? And I feel bad for Mr. Frazier because he gets caught in the middle by buying something that didn't even know there was a variance for a garage, and the previous owner converted this.
If it was the same owner making a second request for a garage, it would definitely factor into my decision. When did building inspections become the standard?
Uniform dwelling code?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Was it after 2007?
I think it's gotta be right around that time frame, to be honest.
Each town chose what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah, and each town does contract with a uniform dwelling code inspection or uniform dwelling code inspector as to what they want inspections on. Some towns require inspections on garages, some don't, some require it on decks, some don't. All of them by state code need to have it on habitable dwellings.
I built my house in 2008, and it was required that I have an inspector.
I mean, I can
So,
search it.
based on that, I wonder if this can happen again.
Well, it's not attached anymore, so it'd be
We
two
could,
dwellings.
Right.
if we approve something, we can mandate that it can never be used as habitable space, along with other
But
stipulations.
It's not attached, so it'd be two dwellings in the same lot.
Okay, so it's already,
This one, the new one is not attached.
right. You're-
So it
good
couldn't
point.
be livable space, because it'd be two dwellings in the same lot.
Okay. All right. Okay, any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to either approve or deny.
You should ask if there's any other people.
Oh,
in
geez,
support of-
yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else to speak in support of the application? Hearing none, anyone else to speak in opposition of the application? Hearing none, discussion by the board and decision by the board. I think we've already had our discussion. Does anybody want to make a motion? Steve?
I would make a motion to approve the variance request with some stipulations to be tacked on. Water control, maybe a rain garden, Jay, whatever your expertise is on that, to be implemented with a drainage system from the roof of the new garage to control water runoff. Do we have to be concerned about height?
The application, as presented, has this as a single story. It'd be up to you if you want to implement the height. I guess you'd want to ask the applicant what he's anticipating for roof pitch. As far as the rain garden, yes, you can certainly add that. I don't know where they would be able to necessarily get a rain garden in. I mean, the water is diverted into, in a sense, a very large rain garden in the form of these wetlands.
Isn't there some way they could control the speed of the filtration into that with it just a rock?
Yeah, and I think, what Mr. Frazier had indicated, and maybe this is something you'd want to tie into conditions, is, to tie those, gutter systems together, and that they would be put into some type of, trap rock, some type of trap rock configuration as to avoid additional runoff or erosion before the water is able to naturally go into the wetland. Regardless of where you're going to put this water, whether you're going to create a rain garden or not, this water is going to go out to these wetland complexes
rock
on either
cistern
side,
helps.
right?
Yeah.
Can we just say some type of approved runoff management system?
I would like to stipulate that there is an approved water management system to control runoff from both the home and the garage to eliminate erosion. Do you know what the pitch is on the roof you're proposing?
612.
Okay. And would you be trying to incorporate any kind of attic truss to have storage up top? No?
You know what your wall heights are?
It's gonna be 8 or 10 feet. I'm trying to look at the proportion of everything, because what I don't wanna have, or what we don't wanna have, is some ungodly looking structure that overpowers the principal structure, right? So
That probably
8
won't
to 10
happen.
feet with 612 pitch, and then, yeah, I mean, we have no problem running over, I mean, Jay and I even talked about doing a French drain over there where it slows it down and goes into that wetland area, right? So we have no problem with that stipulation.
I guess the other stipulation would be that the side wall height be limited to 10 feet. And I guess, I don't think it's that complicated beyond that.
No, we can put that in there, because then, yeah, if you said a sidewall height instead of pitch, then that's gonna set a height, and I just kind of roughly calculated it'd be 17 feet in height.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And Steve, I would say it's due to conditions that are unique to the property and not a self-created hardship.
And I don't see any harm to the public interest here.
Correct.
I just really don't think it's gonna harm anything there.
Got all that, Kathy? Okay. Joe, you care to second it?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. Okay, any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Let the record reflect that the motion is approved by, or the application is approved by a vote of 5-0. All right, any other business before the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? I'll make that motion. Laura's been begging to make them.
Second.
Yes, all right, all right. Made and seconded, all those approved, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, we are out of here. Can you make it to Barron?